Chapter 5302. Everyone looked at Zi Chen with curiosity in their eyes. This person knew Lord Dharmasol. The two of them were friends. Vader and the other two's expressions turned ugly. How did they meet him? Mars's eyes had also changed slightly. Luo came in front of Zi Chen and sized up Zi Chen. You actually came here. Zi Chen said calmly, of course. Luo said indifferently, who allowed you to come? Do you have the qualifications? Zi Chen was too lazy to talk nonsense and took out the qualification token. Luo gritted his teeth, snorted, and extended his hand. Zi Chen pretended to be puzzled. What's the matter? Return the imitation world annihilation bell to me, Luo said coldly, his eyes almost spitting fire. Everyone's expression changed when they heard that. If you don't return it, don't think of participating in the trial today. Luo's eyes were full of threats. Zi Chen said indifferently, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm very curious. You ignored the rules of the Pure Land and ambushed me. Why are you still alive? Don't you understand that you deserve death? Or do you have some special privilege as a reserve Dharma soul that allows you to ignore the rules? Zi Chen's words were also threatening. The reason why Almai did not kill Luo was because Zi Chen took Luo's imitation world annihilation bell. It could be said that he used it to exchange for his life. Luo was also very clear about this point. Today he was unwilling to give up and said coldly, You really don't want to return it? Zi Chen said sarcastically, Scram. Once this was said, it immediately caused an uproar. You, a small trial taker, dare to be disrespectful to Dharma Soul? Once Dharma Soul broke through and became a heavenly law soul, he would be a proper Dharma Soul. You dare to be disrespectful to Dharma Soul? Do you want to die? At this moment, a cold voice came from the front. It was the person who appeared 3 days ago. Zi Chen looked at him. Dharma Soul, is it him? Zi Chen extended his finger and pointed at Leo. If I'm not wrong, before you advance to the heavenly law realm, even if you pass the test, you will only be a reserve soldier, right? Where did the Dharma Soul come from? You, that person was furious. You what? Zi Chen said coldly, The real Lord Dharma Soul hasn't spoken yet. What are you barking for? Do you still have Lord Dharma Soul in your eyes? The other party's expression abruptly changed. He couldn't bear this crime, so he hurriedly shut his mouth. Zi Chen looked at Leonard. You asked me for a replica of the World Annihilation Bell. Why? Am I robbing you? That's right, you stole it. I can testify. Suddenly, a voice sounded from the crowd. Kit stood out with his head held high. He felt that it was time for him to perform. Me too. Behind Kit, those people from back then also stepped forward one by one. We saw with our own eyes that you stole the Milord's replica World Annihilation Bell. When Zi Chen heard this, he was amused. Are you sure you saw me snatch the World Annihilation Bell? Of course I saw it with my own eyes. Everyone vowed solemnly. Leonard looked coldly at Zi Chen, as if saying, Let's see how you're going to quibble now that there's a witness. Zi Chen looked at Leonard's expression and laughed. You're quite proud of yourself. A reserve Dharma soul had his item snatched by a trial taker. Why don't you go and die? Leonard's expression froze. Zi Chen looked at Kit and the rest. Come over and tell me, how did I snatch the World Annihilation Bell? Tell me the process in detail. Kit and the rest obviously didn't notice the change in their manners. At this moment, they were scrambling to tell the truth. Enough! At this moment, that Dharma soul spoke. I don't care what personal grudges you have. Next is the assessment. Whatever grudges you have, wait until the assessment is over. If both sides continued like this, the one who would lose face would be the Dharma soul. This person in charge naturally didn't want to see this scene. Leonard also knew the severity of the matter and snorted coldly. Zi Chen sneered. Kit and the rest could only step back resentfully. The assessment begins. As long as you persist for 10 minutes, you'll pass the first round. If you persist for an hour, you'll be rewarded with a condensing spirit pill. If you persist for 2 hours, you'll directly become a reserve and be exempted from the following assessment. As soon as the sentence was said, it immediately caused an uproar. Many people's expressions became excited and full of confidence. After saying this, Leonard glanced at Chen indifferently and then stepped back. They gave up this platform. Everyone surrounded it, but the center position was left empty. No one went near it. There's gossip that the center position will be very difficult, Vader said softly. Chen smiled when he heard that and walked over. Compared to other places, this place wasn't crowded at all. He was full of confidence in the assessment. If even he, a person who had refined the soul power of heaven and earth, couldn't complete it, who else could? Seeing Chen walk to the center, many people had strange expressions. Seeing this, Vader and the other two also walked to Chen's side, but they didn't dare to get too close. Buzz! Ripples appeared above their heads, and a formation appeared. This formation was formed by countless seals and light rays crisscrossed. When it appeared, soul power descended from above, as if sensing the bottom. Then the formation began to expand. Sir, token! Under Vader's reminder, Chen took out the assessment token. At this moment, the others had also taken out their tokens. The tokens began to glow, and the aura was the same as the formation above their heads. Buzz! The formation continued to expand until it enveloped the last person in the periphery. At this point, the number of people was locked. At the same time, a formation appeared under everyone's feet. When this formation appeared, the trial taker's realms were automatically activated. For a moment, all kinds of auras circulated in the field. This scene caused waves of exclamations. Originally, everyone thought that the assessment was uniform, so those with higher realms would definitely have an advantage. But now, it seemed that wasn't the case. A small formation appeared above everyone's head. A powerful beam of soul power descended from the array, attacking everyone's souls. Facing this soul power impact, many people's faces turned pale, but they gritted their teeth and persevered. The test began. Time passed slowly. The soul power pressure became stronger and stronger. After 10 breaths, someone groaned and fell to the ground. He couldn't withstand the pressure and failed. The qualification token in his hand immediately turned into smoke and disappeared. He lost the qualification. The first to fail was a 7th level destroyer, which was enough to show that this test had nothing to do with realms. He retreated with a dejected expression. Following that, more and more people failed. After failing, they were in a bad mood. After 10 minutes, more than half of the people had been eliminated. Leo's voice sounded at this moment. The remaining people can participate in the second test. Those who want to continue to try to obtain the soul condensing pill can continue. Hearing Leo's words, more than half of the people who succeeded chose to give up. They had already reached their limit. Since they had already passed, there was no need to persist. There were less than 200 people left who still wanted to try. Vader and the other two also gave up. They knew what they were capable of. Lord Chen was still persevering. He closed his eyes and didn't say a word. As time passed, his soul power was still increasing. Those people gave up one after another. An hour later, there were only 10 people left. Chapter 5303. The last 10 people were undoubtedly the existence of powerful soul power. Their realms were not high or low. All 10 of you can get a soul concentrating pill as a reward. After that, another 8 people gave up one after another. In the end, there was only one 9th stage realm and one Chen left. Everyone was watching, not knowing if the 2 of them could succeed. After all, if they succeeded, they could be exempted from the assessment and become a reserve soul power in the future. 2 hours finally passed. Exclamations were heard all around. Leonard said, The two of you can be exempted from the later assessments and become soul power reserves directly. When he said this, he looked at Zi-Chen with an extremely cold gaze. That ninth stage realm cultivator heaved a heavy sigh of relief as he almost collapsed and sat on the ground directly. He was agitated. After so many assessments, he finally succeeded. Zi-Chen was still standing there with his eyes closed. There was no reaction. I said, you've succeeded. You can end it now. Leonard said coldly, don't show off your soul power anymore. Back off now. Zi-Chen seemed as though he didn't hear anything as he stood there without moving. When Leonard saw this, he got even angrier. How dare he ignore him? He immediately went up and prepared to give Zi-Chen a kick. Suddenly, Vader walked up. Wait, His Excellency is meditating. Don't disturb him. Meditating? Leonard was stunned. The others also had a puzzled look. They were in the middle of the assessment now. How could the impact of the soul power be so terrifying? How could he meditate? Just how powerful was his soul power? Get lost. Leonard's eyes flashed. Can you take responsibility for delaying other people's assessment? Vader stretched out both hands and stopped Leonard. According to the assessment rules, as long as someone is still taking the assessment, it can end. He has passed the assessment. It's time to end it, Leonard said coldly. No, His Excellency has already meditated and is expected to obtain the last opportunity. Vader said, I've heard that in this first assessment there's a lost array. It's like the heaven and earth soul power in the refinement ground. When this sentence came out, everyone was stunned. Apparently, they had never heard of this before. Leonard's gaze changed. As a future lost soul, he naturally knew some secrets. After Vader's reminder, he remembered. Nonsense. The trial is already over. Zi-Chen had already obtained the soul power of heaven and earth, and was now in a meditative state. It was very likely that he would obtain the opportunity here, and he naturally didn't want to see that happen. Seeing that Vader was blocking his way, Leonard slapped him away. Pa! Vader was sent flying with a palm print on his face. You're abusing your authority to avenge a personal grudge. Vader said angrily, Sir Zi-Chen is at a critical moment. Don't disturb him. Bullshit. The trial ended long ago, so why should he waste everyone's time? Leo stepped forward, intending to attack Zi-Chen. Suddenly, Blue Mountain blocked his path. Vader also shouted to the front, Sir, he has disregarded the rules. The law spirit frowned slightly but didn't say anything. Silence meant acquiescence. Pa! Leonard sent out another slap, sending Lan Shan flying as well. You overconfident dog. Leonard smiled disdainfully, but soon the smile on his face disappeared. Angeli also blocked in front, looking at Leonard with a determined gaze. Sir's trial isn't over yet. You can't break the rules. With so many people watching, aren't you afraid of affecting the law spirit's reputation? Little girl, I won't lower myself to your level if you pester me endlessly. But not only are you wasting everyone's time, you're also tarnishing my law spirit's reputation. You really deserve to die. Angeli only felt her vision blur, and then she heard slapping sounds. 2 slaps, one on the left and one on the right. Her cheeks were burning in pain, and they immediately swelled. Get lost. Then Leonard kicked out again, and Angeli flew backward, coughing up blood. Everything is over. Leonard's eyes were filled with a gloating smile, and he slapped again. This time it was Zi-Chen's cheek. But before the slap landed, a person appeared out of thin air, blocking in front of him. Leonard looked at the person in front of him, and his expression changed drastically. He subconsciously took a few steps back, looking at the other party in shock. How did the Law Spirit Alliance nurture such a trash like you? That person looked at Leonard. Previously, you broke the rules and used the imitation world extinguishing bell to exchange for your life. Have you forgotten about it so quickly? The person who came was Almai. It was the middle-aged man in the trial land. You Leonard looked at the other party, unable to say a word. All My looked at Mars, who was in front of him. Looking at you, I don't find it strange anymore. Only trash like you would follow such trash around. What do you mean? Mars's eyes had a trace of anger. All My pointed at Leonard. Even a trial taker knows about this. It's fine if this idiot pretends not to know, but you, the manager, don't tell me you don't know? What is the biggest opportunity in the first trial? Don't tell me you don't know. If you don't know, why did the higher-ups send you here? Are you an idiot? All Mai's words were extremely rude, but this also indirectly told everyone that there was indeed a huge opportunity here. All Mai, don't be so unpleasant with your words. I naturally know there is a huge opportunity here, Mars said coldly. If you know, then why did you let this idiot destroy it? Do you have any shame? All Mai kept calling him an idiot, totally not putting Leonard in his eyes. Unfortunately, Leonard didn't have any temper. It's easy for you to say. No one had obtained the opportunity here for so many years, and he's just a mere 6th-stage realm cultivator. How can he get it? Mars gave a cold harumph. Rather than letting him waste everyone's time here, why don't we hurry and wake him up to start the next trial? All My ridiculed. This is the reason why you broke the rules. I just don't want to waste everyone's time. Mars continued. I don't believe that he's just a mere 6th-stage realm cultivator. However, before he could finish his words, the sky suddenly shook. Wong. The array in the sky started to shake vigorously. Following that, the array beneath everyone's feet started to show abnormalities. The spell formation, which had originally enveloped everyone and covered an extremely wide area, began to shrink. Now, it only had a radius of 10 feet. A tyrannical energy suddenly surged. Those who were within the radius of 100 feet were sent flying by this gust of energy. This included All Might as well. He who had retreated raised his head to look the sky, and his eyes were filled with excitement. Succeeded, he really succeeded. This is impossible. Mars cried out in shock. Leonard and the other Dharma Soul trainers also looked in front of them in disbelief. In the sky, a whirlpool appeared in the center of the array. All the divine patterns automatically separated, and a glowing divine pattern slowly descended from above. This is mine. Chapter 5304. The arrays in the sky and on the ground appeared, and the trial officially began. Zi-Chen seemed to be attracted, and his consciousness came to a strange place. There were divine runes everywhere, dazzling his eyes. At a glance, he felt lost. This was a world of divine runes. During this period of time, an indistinct summon came from the front. Zi-Chen followed the voice and moved forward. The divine runes here were crisscrossed, and some of them were extremely lethal. But to Zi-Chen, this was not a problem. He stepped on the edge of the divine runes, brushing past one powerful divine rune after another. That voice was sometimes far and sometimes near. Zi-Chen could not determine the exact direction and could only search aimlessly. This went on for a long time, but Zi-Chen still could not find the source of the voice. At the same time, he felt weak. The reason for that was because every step one took in this place consumed soul power. How can this be? Zi-Chen was puzzled. He was not far away from the voice, and although the divine runes around him were complicated, they did not affect him at all. He could pass through them at will. Why couldn't he find it? At this moment, a divine seal suddenly flew out of Zi-Chen's sea of consciousness. This was given to him by the old man of the divine rune race. It was the old man's life's work. Zi-Chen did not cultivate many arrays, but he could easily use them. It was mainly because of this divine seal. The divine seal shone, creating ripples like a bright lamp, pointing the way for Zi-Chen. The divine runes around him moved to the sides like water, and a path formed by divine runes appeared in front of Zi-Chen. Zi-Chen was slightly stunned. After coming to his senses, he followed the divine seal forward. After a few dozen feet, an open space appeared. It's out. Previously, Zi-chan had been here and there. At the same time, a voice sounded in Zi-chen's sea of consciousness. The successor of the divine rune race is finally here. There was an additional light in front of him. Zi-chen looked at this light in surprise. The guiding divine seal turned into a ray of light again and entered Zi-chen's sea of consciousness. The glowing figure stared at Zi-chen. Over the years, there have been many people who were proficient in divine inscriptions who came here, but none of them were able to reach this place. Do you know why? Zi-chen hesitated. Could it be because of the divine seal? The shadow nodded. That's right. The divine imprint is the foundation of our race. Without the divine imprint, even if you know the divine imprint, you are not of our race. Therefore, no matter how high your cultivation is, you won't be able to reach this place. Oh, that's right. They're now collectively called Magic Array. You know, Zi-chen's expression changed. He had thought that the other party was just a spirit, but he didn't expect it to possess its own intelligence. You'll naturally know once you see more. The other party laughed self-deprecatingly and asked, You're from the spiritual realm, right? Zi-chen nodded. There was only one word difference between the myriad spirit realm and the spirit realm, so they were probably the same place. That's right. The shadow laughed. It seems that I was right to leave the opportunity down there many years ago. Senior, what exactly happened back then? Zi-chen asked. Why did the immortal spell world become like this? And when I was in the myriad spirit realm, I saw many broken worlds, and the divine rune race was one of them. The shadow said, Some existence has always wanted to enslave us, not allowing us to have our own thoughts and will. What? Zi-chen's expression changed. They only want slaves, puppets, but we are the spiritual race, the human race. How could we be enslaved by them? There was a hint of coldness in the shadow's eyes. Not even in death. Senior, what exactly happened back then? Zi-chen wanted to know the truth very much, but the shadow didn't say anything. He glanced at Zi-chen and said, Knowing too much will put too much pressure on you, and it won't do any good at the moment. You just have to remember that we have never been afraid and have never given up on resisting. So what if we're destroyed? As long as the spiritual race doesn't die and the human race doesn't perish, we will make a comeback. Zi-chen didn't understand, but he felt his blood boil. It was because of the spirit of not retreating and fighting to the end. We once failed, but we left the seed of hope for the spiritual race and the human race. The shadow said solemnly, Even if they took away everything that belonged to us, as long as there are people in the future, as long as there is the flame of hope, one day, we will take back everything that belongs to us. The shadow looked at Zi-chen. What you need to do next is to become stronger. As for the truth, when you have enough strength, you will naturally know. Whether it's a Dharma soul or an immortal soul, as long as there is a chance, you can't miss it because it originally belonged to us. Or rather, it belongs to you. The shadow's words undoubtedly confirmed Zi-chen's guess. He said, The Dharma soul I met had many divine runes of the divine rune race. Could it be? That's right. Today's arrays all originate from the divine rune Tao. But after they took it, they changed its name. What Dharma soul or immortal soul? They weren't even worthy of carrying our shoes back then. The shadow laughed mockingly. Our divine rune race is blessed by the heavens. Even if they destroy our race and steal our divine runes, so what? There are rules in the world, and naturally there is destiny. As long as this world does not destroy us, then no one can destroy us. The shadow looked at Zi-chen. Now, I will teach you the heaven and earth forbidden technique. This is what they have always wanted, and they have tried countless times. But they will never know that those who are not of our race will never succeed. After the shadow finished speaking, its body bloomed with light. At its chest, its heart turned into a divine rune. The body of the glowing figure was becoming dimmer and dimmer. Senior, Zi-chen saw this scene and shouted. The shadow smiled. Zi-chen, It must be the will of the heavens for you to appear at this time. I believe that in the future, you will definitely be able to make the divine rune race stand at the top of the world again." The shadow disappeared, and the last ray of light entered the divine rune. The divine rune flew to Zichin. "Senior," Zichin cried out in grief. It turned out that the divine rune was formed by the senior's life. "Don't be sad. This is my mission. After waiting for so many years, my mission has finally been completed. You should be happy for me." The shadow's final voice sounded. "Now, you have to appear happy, lest those people see through you. Also, don't expose your identity as a member of the divine rune race. You have to learn to endure." The shadow disappeared, and the divine rune flew to Zichin. In the real world, Zichin opened his eyes. At this moment, the divine rune was already in front of him. At this moment, a shadow came forward. "This is mine." It was Luoao. He wanted to snatch this divine rune. The shadow disappeared. Zichin was already feeling uncomfortable, and when he saw Luoao, he was even angrier. This was formed by the senior's life. "You want it." A cold light flashed in Zichin's eyes, and he punched out like a heavy hammer. "Dong!" Heaven and earth shook and ripples appeared. Luoao was sent flying. The divine rune entered Zichin's sea of consciousness. A message appeared. "Heaven and earth forbidden technique." This was a type of forbidden divine rune. Chapter 5305. Zichin had obtained the heaven and earth forbidden technique. It was a type of complicated divine pattern. When cultivated to a high level, it could seal this part of the world. He recalled the words of the light shadow. He had to conceal it well and not let others see any clues. However, Zichin was not happy at all. It was because of his appearance that the light shadow that had guarded this place for many years disappeared. Looking at Leo again, Zichin's eyes became colder. "Look, didn't you get it?" At this moment, faint laughter rang out. Zichin turned his head and was stunned when he saw All My. "Haha, it's a success. My lord has succeeded." Vader shouted excitedly. Zichin looked at Vader and saw that there was blood at the corner of his mouth. His aura was also very weak. He then looked at Lan Shan and Angeli. They were the same. Angeli's cheeks were completely swollen. For a girl, no matter what, her appearance was the most important. "What's going on? Who did this?" Zichin's expression turned cold. Angeli burst into tears. She could hold it in before, but when she heard the Lord's voice, she could no longer hold it in. "It's him. I said that the test is not over, but he didn't listen." Vader pointed at Leo. Zichin did not need to guess to know what had happened. No wonder All My had appeared. He turned his head and looked at Leo. "It's you again." Leo said, "So what if I gave them a few slaps? Who knew that a dog like you could really get benefits? I thought you were deliberately stalling everyone." There was no remorse in his words. Instead, he looked as if it was only natural. F***CKU. Zichin was furious. This guy really deserved to die. Zichin's figure flashed and appeared in front of Leo. Leo was shocked. "You!" However, before he could finish speaking, Zichin's slap greeted his face. Slap. It was crisp and loud. "Stop!" Marza shouted. He did not expect Zichin to be so bold. He actually dared to attack a future Lawsol. The others were also stunned. Making a move without any regard for the other party's identity. Wasn't that a little too fierce? After all, no matter what, the other party's status was higher than yours. Zichin completely ignored Marzu. After sending Leonard flying with a single slap, his figure blurred and appeared before Marzu once more. Pa! The second slap landed, and it was still crisp and clear. Blood splattered in the air, accompanied by a few teeth. This scene shocked everyone. Everyone had seen Zichin's audacity, but they didn't expect him to be so strong. Pa! 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 Zichin continued to swing his hand, and the crisp sound of slapping rang out. He didn't say a word. He just made a move. That crisp sound made everyone's hearts jump. Leonard's cheeks immediately swelled up like a pig's head. Marza narrowed his eyes. A cold intent surged as he prepared to attack. Almai appeared beside him with a smile on his face. This made Marzu somewhat fearful. He signaled the people around him with his eyes. "You're courting death." A reserve member bellowed and prepared to attack. Zichin stopped and turned his head to look at him. "If you have the capability, come up here. Don't talk nonsense here." Who would dare to come up here? Those reserve members already understood each other very well. Zichin had beaten Leonard until he couldn't retaliate. It would be the same if he were to beat them up. Zichin stomped his foot on it again. "Uft!" Leonard coughed out blood again. "Enough!" Marza spoke again. If a reserve member was really injured by a trial taker, it would affect the reputation of Dharma Soul. He couldn't bear this responsibility. Zichin kicked out and sent Leonard flying. Leonard continued to cough out blood in midair. Even with Marza's obstruction, Zichin believed that Leonard would lose all his face here. Leonard, who landed on the ground, directly fainted. In such a situation, only fainting was suitable. "How dare you?" Marza looked at Zichin and narrowed his eyes. His eyes were filled with coldness. Zichin looked at him calmly. "Why didn't you say this when my friend was humiliated earlier?" Zichin was only at the Law Destroyer realm, while Marzu was at the Law Destroyer realm. However, Zichin didn't show the slightest bit of respect, because such an existence wasn't worthy of respect at all. "Do you know the difference in seniority?" Marzu was furious. "As a trial taker, do you know the difference in seniority?" Zichin replied, "I know one reason, and I only know one reason." Although Zichin didn't know what had happened earlier, he naturally guessed it when he saw Vader and the other two and Almai. Therefore, it wasn't Marza's credit or Leonard's that he could successfully obtain the heaven and earth forbidden technique. It was Vader and the other three who bought time for him. Naturally, there was no need to be polite. Marza snorted. Almai was still looking at him mockingly. He naturally didn't dare to do anything that went against the rules. Otherwise, he would have slapped Zichin to death long ago. Unfortunately, he didn't dare to make a move here for fear of being caught by Almai. However, it wasn't his style to let Zichin off just like that. He snorted and said, "Zichin, you disregarded the rules of the trial and wantonly beat up the judge. I have the right to disqualify you. From now on, you're the same as the others. You only have the right to continue the trial. You don't have the right to become a Dharma soul directly. Also, the reward for the elixir will be cancelled." His words immediately caused an uproar. This action was undoubtedly depriving Zichin of the right to become a Dharma soul. One had to know that based on the strength that Zichin had displayed, he was already a Dharma soul reserve. Almai didn't expect Marzu to say such a thing. His expression changed immediately. "Marzu, what did you say?" Marzu sneered. "What? You want to stop this?" "As the person in charge of this trial, I have the right to make necessary responses to any incident." Marza stretched out his hand and pointed at Zichin. He said with a smug look, he beat up Leonard and disregarded the rules. "It's only right that I deprive him of the right to be promoted." You, Almai was furious. "Haha," Marza laughed heartily. He was in a good mood. The others looked at each other. They didn't expect to be deprived of the right to be promoted just like that. Vader and the other two were very ashamed. If they knew that their lord would be deprived of the right to be promoted, they wouldn't have pointed out Leonard. "Isn't it just a trial? I'll continue." Zichin didn't seem to care. Marzu said disdainfully, "You can only continue." Almai turned his head and looked away. The corners of his mouth curled up. He was obviously laughing. That idiot Marzu was simply teasing him. Previously, he was still thinking about what excuse he could use to make Zichin continue to participate in the next trial. After all, there was still a good thing in the trial ground. He didn't expect Marzu to do this. He was just about to sleep when someone sent him a pillow. Chapter 5306. All Might didn't continue to be overbearing. It would be bad if Marzu, the idiot, reacted and changed his mind. He tactfully retreated. This made Marzu even more pleased. He even smiled provocatively at the other party. Very good. Those who advance will proceed to the next round. Marzu waved his hand and couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense. As long as you get the token, you pass. A passage appeared in front of them. This was the second stage of the assessment. Chen looked at Leonard and the other two. They had all obtained the qualifications to continue. Seeing this, they also walked forward. Together, Chen led the three of them into the passageway. Marzu was expressionless. Beside him, the reserve member was communicating with some people with his eyes. Almai pretended not to notice these small movements. Chen had already entered, so there was no need to care. If even these people could scheme against him, then how could he fight against stronger existences in the future? These are your elixirs. Marzu waved his hand and distributed the elixirs. Almai looked at Marzu. According to the rules, the elixirs would be distributed at the end. Marzu smiled faintly and said, "The rules have changed this time." Almai knew what the other party was planning. In fact, it was completely harmless. He was just putting on an act. Even with the elixirs, these people might not be able to break through. Therefore, they still posed no threat to Chen. Chen and the other three arrived at the second stage of the assessment. Haha, finally here. Vader and the other two were very excited. Chen looked at Vader. What's here? It's the same as the trial world. There are soul beasts inside. After killing them, you can obtain soul crystals. Vader smiled. Regardless of whether you can successfully advance after entering, as long as you obtain soul crystals, your soul power will increase by quite a bit. In this way, the probability of success next time will be higher. Next time? Chen was surprised. Can you participate in this place many times? This place opens once every 5 years. In theory, as long as you obtain the qualifications, you can participate once every 5 years until you advance to the Heavenly Law Realm or completely lose the qualifications. Vader smiled bitterly. But it's not easy to get the qualifications. According to our current calculations, we can only come 3 times at most. So after this failure, we will wait till our realms reach 7th stage realm before we try again. After that, it will be 9th stage realm. Lanshan and Angeli also nodded. Chen said, "The assessment has just begun and you're already discouraged? I believe that you will succeed." Vader shook his head and said, "Sir, please don't make fun of us. We are not as capable as you." Suddenly an aura attacked. A soul beast scuttled out from the side and pounced towards Vader. This was a level 3 law extermination realm soul beast, and its aura was hidden extremely well. Lanshan and Angeli's expressions changed greatly. However, before they could react, the soul beasts had already arrived. At this moment, Chen snorted coldly, and a streak of soul light flew out from his sea of consciousness. Whoosh! Like a sharp sword, it pierced straight into the soul beast sea of consciousness. To Chen, killing a soul beast like this was a piece of cake. The soul beast fell to the ground in pain and let out a cry. It didn't die and launched another attack towards Vader. Chen let out a cry of surprise, not daring to believe his eyes. Through the aura, the other party was merely at level 3 law extermination realm while he was at level 6. Even if it was a casual attack, it should be enough to kill the other party. However, other than the other party letting out a cry of surprise after falling to the ground, there were no other abnormalities. Chen immediately released his soul power, wanting to find out what was going on. Buzz! Chen's boundless soul power was like a huge net, firmly locking onto the other party. At this moment, The soul beast was merely a few feet away from Vader. His mind was blank. The soul beast stayed in midair, not moving at all. Zi Chen's soul power forcefully probed into the soul beast's body and let out another cry of surprise, because this wasn't a real soul beast, but was transformed from a divine pattern that could transform flesh and blood. Zi Chen's sea of consciousness released a streak of soul light once again, piercing towards the other party like a sharp blade. This time, it didn't pierce into the sea of consciousness, but towards the heart. That was the core of the divine pattern. The soul light pierced through the soul beast's body. The soul beast started to distort and eventually turned into a crystal. Zi Chen stretched out his hand and the crystal flew towards him. A divine pattern could transform into a soul beast and could also condense into a soul crystal. He was increasingly curious about this place. Be careful. Their weakness isn't in the sea of consciousness, but Zi Chen threw the soul crystal to Vader and walked forward. However, after taking a few steps, he stopped talking, because he had discovered a second soul beast. The other party's weakness wasn't in the heart this time, but in the back of its waist. Sensing this point, Zi Chen was stunned. Wasn't it the same? Following that, he extended his soul power and discovered some soul beasts nearby. After that, he silently probed for their weaknesses. After refining the soul power of heaven and earth, Zi Chen's soul power had increased by a lot, so he could easily sense and probe. Their weakness isn't limited to a certain area. You guys have to be careful. Zi Chen reminded them solemnly. The three of them nodded. They had done some homework before coming here. Same old rules. The three of you go first. Under Zi Chen's signal, the three of them started to come into contact with the soul beasts. Zi Chen stood at the side, ready to make a move at any time. With a great expert like Zi Chen around, the three of them didn't have any scruples. This was also the reason why they went to find Lord Zi Chen back then. With Lord Zi Chen's help, this trial would be much easier. The number of soul beasts here was much more than in the trial ground back then. Although Zi Chen didn't make a move, his soul force was able to clearly detect all the soul beasts in the vicinity. Weaknesses and abilities. Zi Chen was the first to enter, and the others followed closely behind. Among these people, there was a 9th stage destroyer. He was one of Mars' men. He had obtained the elixir, but didn't advance directly. After arriving here, he looked at the people beside him and said, "Go find Zi Chen. Send me a message when you find him. Don't alert him." The people beside him nodded immediately and spread out to search for Zi Chen's traces. "Zi Chen, don't go out this time." A cold, murderous intent flashed in Brett's eyes. Another soul crystal. Under Zi Chen's reminder, the soul beast was killed by Vader. Vader picked up a soul crystal and was very excited. They didn't expect to break through here this time. As long as they could obtain enough soul crystals and continue to strengthen their soul power, they might be able to become reserves before reaching the 9th stage destroyer. At this moment, Zi Chen also understood the meaning of the test. Other than soul power, it was also a test of arrays. Once a battle started, the soul beasts would display power equivalent to an array. They had to make their own judgment. This required a deep understanding of arrays. The three of them obviously didn't have such knowledge. Therefore, the three of them were destined to fail this time. Zi Chen looked at the sky. Suddenly, a ray of light fell. Zi Chen subconsciously reached out and grabbed the ray of light. It was a talisman. Chapter 5307. Vader and the other two were dumbfounded when they saw the talisman that had fallen from the sky. They had come here mainly to obtain some soul crystals to strengthen their own soul power. Their initial goal was to succeed on their 3rd attempt at the 9th stage of the Destroyer Realm. However, their lord had actually gained their recognition before they had even made a move. It could be said that even if their lord had withdrawn now, he had already succeeded. "Lord is too amazing!" Lan Shan exclaimed. Angelis said, "Of course." Lord had already succeeded previously, but his qualifications were stripped. Zichen smiled. "Actually, you guys can succeed too." The three immediately looked at Zichen. Was Lord going to impart his insights to them? After returning, "You guys have to study more formations. You have to study all kinds of things." Zichen pointed ahead. "The soul beasts here are equivalent to formations. Once you have thoroughly studied them and gained more knowledge, you will naturally be able to advance. As for soul power, you just have to refine more soul crystals." There was a difference of 4 stages between Zichen and the 3 of them. If this situation continued, the gap might become even bigger in the future. Therefore, the 4 of them couldn't travel together forever. Zichen said, 500 feet away, "Go and get the soul crystals." As soon as he finished speaking, his soul power flew out like a sword and pierced the soul beast 500 feet away. Uft! It went straight for its weak point. The soul beast died and left behind a soul crystal. Zichen was in charge of the rest. The 3 of them were only in charge of picking up the soul crystals. In Zichen's eyes, these soul beasts were like walking formations. This was also the only thing Zichen could help the 3 of them at the moment. The 3 of them were very excited. With their lord's help, their speed of collecting soul crystals would be even faster. Under such circumstances, their chances of success the next time would be even higher. A beam of soul light flew out, and a slight change suddenly occurred to Zichen's expression. Someone had come, but he didn't dare to show himself. After hurriedly showing himself, he left. "Are you sure it's him?" Brett looked at the newcomer. "Lord, I'm very sure. After I saw him from afar, I didn't dare to act rashly and alerted him. I hurried over to report," the newcomer said excitedly. Brett glanced at the people beside him. There were only a dozen or so people. "Go and find the others. We're going to start the hunt now." Brett's eyes flashed with cold killing intent. "You dare to offend Magic Soul. If you don't die, who will?" The others soon returned. There were as many as 50 of them. With 50 people fighting against 4 people, they seemed to be very confident. Moreover, among these people, there were a total of 5 at the 9th level of the Law Destruction Realm. This was a very terrifying force. Zichen, who was attacking, suddenly stopped. The 3 of them were astonished and looked at Zichen in confusion. Zichen smiled. "There's a big fish." The 3 men's expressions changed as they understood what their lord meant. "The 3 of you, stand here and don't move." Zichen took a few steps forward and said in a clear voice, "Gentlemen, if you happen to pass by, please leave now. I don't like to kill people. If you're here to cause trouble, you can still live if you leave now." Zichen's gaze turned slightly cold. "If you insist on seeking death, I'll naturally grant you your wish." Vader and the other 2 at the back looked at Lord Zichen's back view with admiration. This was the Lord. Before he attacked, he would always persuade others with good intentions. Even if these people were his enemies, he would give them a chance to turn over a new leaf. "Haha, let us go." A sneer came from the forest. "Are you joking?" Brett walked out, and the aura around him started to be released. 9th stage realm. The expressions of Vader and the other 2 at the back changed drastically. They recognized Brett. He was just a little bit away from successfully obtaining the magic soul. However, he had also obtained the elixir, which was enough to prove that his soul power was very strong. I almost died laughing. "Looks like you have a talent for comedy." The second person walked out from the side. He was also in the 9th stage realm. Behind him were more than 10 people. Each of them had a strong aura that completely suppressed Vader and the other 2. Why are there so many people? Looking at these 20 over people, Lan Shan and Angeli's faces immediately turned pale. At this point in time, you still dare to threaten us. I really don't know if you're confident or just an idiot. The third person also walked out and similarly brought more than 10 people with him. At this moment, the three of them were moving forward from 3 different directions. It seemed like they only had one path, which was the back. Vader subconsciously turned his head and took a look behind him. Then his expression turned even uglier. The fourth person appeared. 4 ninth stage realm cultivators led more than 10 cultivators to surround them. Following their appearance, there was an additional oppressive aura in the field. This aura made one feel suffocated. Brett dug his ears. What did you say earlier? Why didn't I hear it? The others also started to roar with laughter. Zi-Chin said calmly, Heaven has the virtue of cherishing life. Then I'll patiently repeat it again. If you leave now, you can live. If you stay, you have to die. When Zi-Chen's words fell, the others laughed again. Their eyes were filled with ridicule. Vader, who was at the back, looked at those complacent, smiling faces and felt very sorrowful. They really couldn't feel the Overlord's benevolence. Wasn't it good to retreat now and live with dignity? Why must they wait until their lives were threatened before kneeling down and begging for mercy? Humph, idiot, you really dare to threaten us. A cold glint flashed past Brett's eyes. He stretched out his hand and said indifferently, Go, chop off one of his arms, and I'll reward you with a medicinal pill. But don't hurt his head. I want to chop it off personally. Following his words, those 10 over people seemed as though they had gone mad as they charged toward Zi-Chin. Zi-Chin looked at them indifferently, and this time round, he didn't give them any more reminders. He only looked, and his gaze turned even colder. The crowd continued to charge forward. Some of them started to adjust their energy, while others had already launched their attacks. Zi-Chin also decided to make a move. Wang. In his consciousness, black spiritual energy appeared and shot out like arrows, piercing through the sky. In the sky, a sharp whistle was heard. When the crowd saw these black arrows, their expressions changed. One of them scolded angrily, Idiot, you're merely in the 6th stage realm and you dare to disperse your spiritual energy. You simply don't know what's good for you. The other party wasn't lying. His realm wasn't high and his spiritual energy was dispersed. How much destructive power could this kind of attack have? But this 6th stage realm cultivator had just finished his words when the black arrows reached him. They went straight into his consciousness. His body, which was charging forward, suddenly stopped. His eyes were wide open. He looked in front with eyes filled with disbelief. The next moment, his gaze turned slack and his body collapsed with a loud bang. Dead. This kind of scene could be seen everywhere. The first batch of people who had charged forward had all died. There were a total of 20 over people. In just one exchange, almost half of them had died. When the others saw this, they retreated in terror. This was just too terrifying. Since you're here, then don't leave. Zi-Chen's gaze was icy cold. He had already given them a chance, so this time round, he naturally wouldn't be merciful. In the sky, a huge array appeared and enveloped the rest of the people. On top of the array, flames curled up and all the array patterns started burn. Numerous fire dragons rushed out from within and headed downwards. Chapter 5308. Zi-Chen did not plan to let a single person off the hook. Miserable cries filled the air as Zi-Chen did not plan on letting anyone off. Fire dragons descended from the sky, carrying a terrifying aura. As they destroyed everyone's defense, they also destroyed their lives. Help! Sir, save me! Those who were still struggling bitterly started to ask for help. At the same time, their hearts were filled with regret. If they had known this would happen, they would not have tried to be brave. But now they had fallen in an instant. Stop! Brett bellowed. He did not expect these people to be so careless. In just a single exchange of blows, they had already suffered heavy casualties. If they waited any longer, everyone would probably die. A bunch of trash! He glanced at the other three, and his meaning was obvious. If they did not make a move now, it would be very troublesome later. Now that there were still cannon fodder, it was the best time to join forces to kill Zichin. The four of them were indeed in the 9th degree realm. The moment they made a move, they displayed their powerful strength. Among them, 3 of them had even activated formations. But in terms of arrays, Zichen's comprehension was much stronger than theirs. He punched out, and his fist flew towards the sky. After 3 punches, the 3 formations collapsed one after another. The cries for help continued, but this time they were begging for mercy. "Sir, have mercy. Let me go. I accidentally got involved in this. Let me go. I'm just a cultivator." When Vader and the other 2 heard these voices, they could not help but sigh and feel sorry for them. What were they doing just now? Did they think that they could do whatever they wanted just because they had more people? They had given them a chance, but all of them mocked and disdained them. Now, they did not even have the chance to collect their corpses. The first round of attacks from the 4 of them was easily resolved by Zichin. Brett's expression changed slightly, and his expression turned grave. He thought that this guy was easy to deal with, but now it seemed that he was not. He stretched out his finger and suddenly tapped his glabella. Whoa! His soul power started to surge and turned into a ray of sword light that shot forward. This ray of sword light was many times thicker and stronger than Zichen's previous attack. It was extremely powerful. When the other 3 saw this, they also used the same technique. As 9th stage realm practitioners, they had the ability to suppress Zichin in terms of realm. In this kind of situation, using absolute power to crush the opponent was the right way to go. Brett sneered, waiting for a good show. Similarly, Zichin extended his hand to tap his glabella. As his soul power surged, for sword lights flew out. 1 against 4. For streaks of black sword light blocked the way of 4 people. How ignorant! When Bright saw that, he gave a disdainful snort. A mere 6th stage realm cultivator wanted to block 4 people's joint attack. That was simply a dream. But in the next moment, a scene that shocked him appeared. Their attacks were obliterated by the 4 streaks of black sword light. "Everyone, I'll send you on your way." A cold voice rang out as Zichen's body disappeared into thin air. When he appeared again, he was already in front of a 9th stage realm cultivator. "You are courting death." 9th stage realm cried out. Under such a close distance, the energy around him surged like a terrifying tidal wave. In front of Zichin, there was a dazzling golden light. This is the core of the real body. When the 9th stage realm cultivator saw this, he cried out in shock and subconsciously retreated. To be so close to someone who had the core of the real body, it was obviously not a good thing for him. Too late! Zichen's voice was icy cold, like the call of the Grim Reaper as he punched forward. Infinite golden light shone, like a sun rising into the sky. Accompanied by a loud bang, the 9th stage realm cultivator's defense was broken and he flew out. Blood splattered in midair as his body tumbled a few rounds in midair before he stabilized himself. Be careful! This guy has the core of the real body. The other party's face was solemn. Zichen's punch did not take his life. It was not that the punch was not strong, but the other party's realm was too high. He was just 1 step away from the heaven realm and was a future Dharma soul. Naturally, he was not easy to deal with. If Zichin could give him 2 more punches, he would probably be dead even if he did not die. When Brett and the other 2 saw this, they became more careful. They pulled apart the distance between Zichin and them and attacked from afar. But the effect was not great. Under the array, no one paid any attention to those who were wailing, crying for help and begging for mercy. Their fate was up to the heavens, but it was obvious that they were going to die. They had been abandoned. Zichin looked at the 4 people in the 4 directions and his face was slightly cold. "Do you think you can live like this?" He raised his head and looked at the array. The last fire dragon swooped down from the array, and then the entire array disappeared. Below, the surging energy waves gradually dissipated. All the wailing and cries for help disappeared, and there was no one alive in the surroundings. All the people that Brett brought were dead. Zi-Chin, you're so cruel. They're all trial takers, yet you're so cruel to them. Brett looked at those corpses and was so angry that he was trembling. The 4 of them had no results, and the people they brought were all dead. The loss this time was extremely huge. Are you still human? They are all living beings. Another 9th stage realm cultivator spoke out. When Zi-Chan heard this, he was happy. I couldn't tell that you guys are so kind. Since that's the case, why didn't you lend a hand to save them earlier? Why did you leave them to fend for themselves? We have been saving them. How can we say that we didn't save them? Brett was so angry that his face turned green. I originally thought that you would just teach them a lesson, but I didn't expect you to be so vicious and merciless. They are all cultivators like you, so are you still considered human? When Vader and the other 2 heard this, their hearts were filled with rage. This was simply pestering them endlessly. Only you are allowed to kill me, and I am not allowed to kill you? How could there be such logic in this world? Oh, now you want to play the kind-hearted game with me? Zi-Chen's face was full of smiles. This game of yours, I have already stopped playing it many years ago. Moreover now, what you should be worried about is not those people who have been sent to their deaths by you, but yourselves. Just based on you? Brett said disdainfully. If we want to leave, will you be able to make us stay? Actually, the current him no longer had the confidence to kill Zi-Chen. Just the core of real body alone was enough to make him very wary. As for the suppression of soul power, they had already seen it before. The soul power of the 4 of them was not much stronger than Zi-Chen's. What, want to run? Zi-Chen smiled disdainfully and then took out the World Annihilation Bell. The moment they saw the World Annihilation Bell, the eyes of the 4 lit up. To Dharma souls, this item was a supreme treasure. This should be your goal, right? You haven't gotten the item yet, and you want to retreat? Zi-Chen raised the World Annihilation Bell. In any case, you have to take a look at it, right? Clang! The bell rang, and golden ripples spread out, forming a destructive power. The 4's expressions changed drastically, and there was no longer any greed in their hearts. This aura made them collapse and despair. One by one, they turned around and ran. Unfortunately, out of the 4, only Brett managed to escape. The remaining 3 9th level Dharma Destruction Realm cultivators all became corpses under the World Annihilation Bell. The bell's drawn-out sound was like the sound of death. Zi-Chin put away the World Annihilation Bell that had vibrated 3 times in a row. He was very satisfied with its power. He glanced at Vader, who understood, and went forward to collect the spoils of war. Chapter 5309. Vader collected the spoils of war, and Zi-Chin took the 7th stage realm and above spirit rings. The remaining 3 people split the spoils. To Zi-Chin, the refinement had actually ended at this point, but he obviously wouldn't leave. He still had to help the 3 of them to reap the greatest rewards. Zi-Chan wouldn't take the initiative to kill someone, but if that fellow who had escaped still came to find trouble, then Zi-Chen would definitely not let him off. Brett had escaped. That Zi-Chen was really scary. After escaping far away, he took out a scarlet-red pill with a sinister expression. Damn it, I didn't expect that. I didn't even dare to use this. Yes, he still had a backup plan, but he didn't dare to use it. Zi-Chen's terrifying power made his heart tremble, but he felt a little regretful. If he had swallowed this pill right from the start and unleashed his strongest power, he might have a high chance of killing Zi-Chen. Alas, he hesitated for a moment and completely missed the chance. What should he do now? That imitation world extermination bell indeed made one envious. It wasn't a problem for him to pass the refinement. Once he obtained Zi Chen's world extermination bell, he wouldn't be afraid of anyone. He didn't care about any magic spirit reserve. Even if the magic spirit stood in front of him, it would have to behave properly. Sigh. Alas, all these were built on the basis of snatching the world extermination bell. Without the world extermination bell, he couldn't even defeat Zi Chen in a direct confrontation. Just as Brett was sighing and didn't know what to do next, a voice rang from the side. "Brett, what are you doing here?" When Brett heard the voice, his expression changed abruptly, and he jumped away vigilantly. A person in front stood on the green stone and looked at him in astonishment. "What's the matter with you?" "David, it's you." Brett heaved a sigh of relief, but he was still vigilant. Earlier, he didn't sense any abnormality which led to someone approaching. If it was an enemy, the consequences would be unimaginable. "What's the matter with you? Why are you so listless?" David asked again. He wasn't anyone else, but the only one who had obtained the qualifications. "Why are you here? Haven't you already advanced?" Brett retorted. "Someone asked me to do something here." David took out a talisman and said, "I already have the qualifications." Brett looked at the token and said, "May I know why you've come here this time?" David did not beat around the bush and asked directly, "Where is Zi Chen?" Brett's expression changed. "You're here for Zi Chen? I have a good relationship with Lon. He humiliated Lon, and since I have the ability to do so, I naturally have to punish him on his behalf. It's also a good opportunity for him to learn that Dharma Soul cannot be offended." David's eyes flashed with killing intent. "You know where he is?" Brett shook his head and sighed when he sensed David's killing intent. "You can't kill him." Oh, Brett told him what had happened to him. When they went, there were dozens of people, but now only one person returned in a sorry state. It seems that this Zi Chen is indeed not ordinary. When David heard what happened, he couldn't help but sigh emotionally. Brett nodded solemnly. Then David said, "But if we find more, do you think he can survive?" Brett was puzzled. David said, "If 50 can't kill him, then what about 500? 5,000? Brett said, "How can there be so many people here? Besides, there are many people who might not listen to our command." David smiled mysteriously. "Humans don't, but beasts do." "What do you mean?" Brett's eyes widened. "Tell me where Zi Chen is. This time, I'll make sure he doesn't return." An extremely special ancient token appeared in David's hand. Zi Chen led the three of them to hunt soul beasts. The three of them had a good harvest this time, and their faces were full of smiles. If they continued like this, they would have great confidence in successfully becoming Dharma souls next time. Zi Chen's expression suddenly changed, and then he turned his head to look ahead. Vader and the others noticed Zi Chen's abnormality and stopped what they were doing and turned their heads. A person appeared there, blocking his path. "You still dare to come?" Vader was very shocked when he saw that person. It was none other than Brett, who had fled in a sorry state. Humph! Brett's response was a cold snort. In fact, he was very unwilling to come this time, because killing Zi Chen wouldn't do him any good. Instead, he would have to take a great risk. "Come out. What's the point of hiding in the dark?" Zi Chen's mouth flashed with ridicule. "Your soul power is not weak." In front of Brett, space began to distort and a person appeared. Vader's expression changed again when he saw that person. "It's you. Didn't you pass the test?" Lan Shan and Angeli were also in disbelief. Those who passed the test didn't need to come here. Lord Zi Chen was an accident. He was deliberately deprived of his rights. "I'm here to take a look and kill a few arrogant people." David looked at Zi Chen and smiled faintly. "Based on what you did to Dharma souls, it's enough for you to die 100 times. With just you." Zi Chen's eyes flashed coldly, and he disappeared from where he was. Since the other party dared to come, They must have something to rely on. Therefore, Zi Chen chose to take the initiative to attack. He arrived in front of David. There was a trace of fear in Brett's eyes. At such a close distance, he could feel a strong pressure. Wang. Bursts of light burst out, and a light wall appeared in front of him, blocking Zi Chen. Boom! Zi Chen's fist landed on the light wall. The light wall began to distort, and the light on it began to change. What do we do? Brett turned his head and looked at David. Once the light wall was broken by Zi Chen, what awaited the two of them was death. David's expression didn't change, and he said confidently, "This light wall can block at least 5 of his attacks." He took out the ancient talisman and waved it at Zi Chen provocatively. Boom! Zi Chen clenched his right fist, and golden light burst out. The second punch landed, and the light wall dimmed visibly, as if it would shatter at any time. How can this block 5 attacks? It can only block 3 at most. Brett yelled. David's expression also changed. He shouted, "Go!" Then he crushed the ancient talisman. The ancient talisman shattered, and a strange power spread out with the two of them as the center. A formation appeared under David and Brett's feet. Boom! Zi Chen's third punch shattered the light wall, and the two of them disappeared at this time. There was nothing in front of them, only a few wisps of aura that had not dissipated. Zi Chen stepped forward and sealed a wisp of aura with his soul power. He didn't sense any threat. Zi Chen was surprised. These two guys came and wasted a life-saving defense. Could it be that they released a few wisps of aura in front of him? There was no attack and there was no danger. It seemed to be just a few wisps of aura. Vader and the other two were also surprised and puzzled. But in the next moment, Zi Chen's expression changed. Chapter 5310. That ancient talisman didn't have any effect on humans, but to the soul beasts here, it had a fatal attraction. The aura of the ancient talisman spread at an extremely fast speed. Sensing this aura, the soul beasts immediately turned around and rushed over. By the time Zi Chen's soul power detected the abnormality, the soul beasts had already appeared in all directions. They blocked all the paths. David and Brett appeared on a mountain peak in the distance. Looking at the soul beasts that were beginning to move below, David revealed a sinister smile. "Let's see if you can survive." "Can we really kill him?" Brett was a little worried. "He has a replica of the World Annihilation Bell." David laughed disdainfully. "So what? How many soul beasts can the World Annihilation Bell kill at once? 50, 100? I don't believe that he can use such an extraordinary item 100 times in a row." David had absolute confidence in this plan. In this situation, no one could survive. Traces of other trial takers also appeared nearby, but after seeing such an anomaly, they all retreated one after another. With so many soul beasts gathered, it would be troublesome if they were discovered. More and more soul beasts gathered, and they were majestic as they rushed in Zi Chen's direction. Vader and the other two finally noticed the abnormality, but in the next moment their faces turned pale. There were more than 1,000 soul beasts in all directions. Before they obtained the ability to fly through the sky, this was a situation of certain death for them. "Sir," Vader shouted, his voice trembling. Zi Chen didn't seem to hear him and was looking up at the sky. Yes, Zi Chen was looking at the sky, not at those soul beasts. Could it be that Sir has the ability to fly them? This thought appeared in Lan Shan's mind. After all, Sir had led them out of danger many times along the way. "Sir!" Anjali also yelled. Zi Chen came back to his senses, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "How interesting! Interesting!" When the three heard this, they were about to cry. This was clearly fatal. How was it interesting? "All of you stand beside me." Zi Chen looked into the distance again. There aren't enough soul beasts. The three of them felt as if they were hallucinating. Otherwise, how could they hear such nonsense coming out of their Lord's mouth? There were so many spirit beasts, and all of them were in different realms. The aura of the leader was even stronger, and it seemed to not be any weaker than an 8th or 9th degree realm martial artist. It was so terrifying, yet his lordship said that there weren't enough of them. If this wasn't nonsense, then what was? People with different perspectives would naturally see things differently. In front of Zichen, the danger in their eyes was actually a great opportunity. This was because when the soul beasts gathered, there was also a formation array gathering above Zichen's head. This formation could not be seen by anyone and could only be sensed by soul power. In fact, ordinary soul power couldn't even sense it. If it wasn't for the fact that Zichen had refined the soul power of heaven and earth, he wouldn't have noticed it either. The gathering of these soul beasts was equivalent to piecing together a formation with this place as the center. At this moment, the formation was still incomplete because there were too few soul beasts. That was why Zichen was so emotional. Soul power extended out, and Zichen saw even more soul beasts gathering here. Even Brett, David, and the others on the periphery sensed it. Too few, still too few. Zichen muttered, "The more, the better." He looked up at the sky again. There was still a long way to go before the formation was complete. Vader and the others didn't know what was going on. Seeing how their lord kept saying too few, they felt that he was bewitched. "Lord, is there a mistake? Do we have to escape?" Vader asked carefully. "Don't worry, as long as you stand here, I can guarantee your safety." With their lord's affirmation, the three of them heaved a sigh of relief. At least from his tone, their lord was still very normal. However, this confidence didn't last for long. Lan Shan muttered softly, "The number of soul beasts is estimated to have reached 5,000. Can our Lord really deal with it? Our Lord has the world annihilation bell, so there shouldn't be a problem." However, these words were obviously not confident. Time passed, but Zichen didn't make a move. The soul beasts were still gathering, and the number kept increasing. Angeli said, "It's already over 10,000. What do we do?" These soul beasts were obviously waiting, but no one knew what they were waiting for. Could it be that they were going to swarm in once more? Now is the time. Lord Zichen also spoke at this moment, his eyes still looking at the sky. The formation had already taken shape in the place he was looking at. It was also at this moment that the soul beasts moved. More than 10,000 soul beasts rushed over at the same time. They were mighty and imposing, and their momentum could destroy everything. Everywhere they passed, everything turned into nothingness. At an extremely high place, Brett and David watched this scene with sneers on their faces. Let's see if you die or not. Under such a situation, even if Zichen was a 9th-stage realm cultivator, he would still die if he couldn't fly, let alone a 6th-stage realm cultivator. The momentum of the soul beasts charging forward was too terrifying. The earth shook and the mountains shook. Vader and the other two couldn't even stand properly at this moment. "My lord, quickly think of a way, or we'll all die." There was obvious fear in Vader's eyes. Zichen finally retracted his gaze. He took a look at those soul beasts and started to form seals. His fingertips were changing rapidly. As the last seal fell, a strange power spread out in all directions. Heaven and earth forbidden technique. Buzz! As the ripples surged, an array appeared under Zichen's feet and quickly spread out in all directions. 100 feet, 10,000 feet. Finally, 10,000 feet. All the soul beasts within 10,000 feet were enveloped by the array. In the next moment, their charging bodies seemed to be frozen in time and didn't move at all. In an instant, they went from running wildly to being still. The entire heaven and earth seemed to have fallen into a seal. The earth-shaking commotion disappeared in an instant. The entire world fell silent. Vader and the other two looked at the scene in shock. The life and death crisis was resolved just like that? No wonder the Lord was so calm earlier. What kind of array was this to seal off 10,000 feet in an instant? However, before they could speak, they realized that Lord Zichin was looking at the sky again. He kept looking at the sky. Was there really something there? The three of them came to a realization and looked up as well. Then they were shocked to see that there was another array in the sky. The range of this array was also about 10,000 feet. However, the entire array was in a sealed state and hadn't been activated. Therefore, they couldn't sense a strong aura for the time being. Suddenly, Zichin moved. He took a step forward. As if he was walking on the sky, he walked towards the sky step by step. If one looked carefully, one would realize that with every step he took, an array would appear under his feet. It was the array that was lifting Zichin into the sky. That is. In the distance, David and Brett also noticed this abnormality. Both of them widened their eyes. Could it be the greatest opportunity hidden in this place? Brett cried out, "How is this possible? Why would the opportunity appear at this time?" He looked at the sky in disbelief. Zichin rose into the sky step by step and arrived under the array. Then he reached out and grabbed at the array core. Chapter 53:11. This is impossible. Absolutely impossible. Brett lost control of his emotions instantly. This place contained a great opportunity. As a ninth stage realm cultivator, he naturally knew about it. But that was merely a legend, and no one had encountered it for many years. Even if they had never encountered it once. Zichin was here for the first time. How could he have discovered it? And coincidentally, it was right above Zichin's head. It was supposed to be a calamity and crisis for Zichin. But for Zichin, it had turned into an opportunity. All the soul beasts were sealed. Then Zichin stretched out his hand and took out a ray of light from the array. This was a divine pattern, or rather an array. He held it in his hand directly. Soul power swept across. Heaven and earth prohibition. It was only one word different from the divine pattern he had obtained previously. But it was completely different. The former was used to trap, while the latter was used to kill. Zichin put away the divine glyph, then lowered his head and looked down. It seemed like he was lucky to have obtained an opportunity, but in fact it was closely linked. First was the heaven and earth soul power, then the heaven and earth prohibition, and finally the heaven and earth prohibition. If he did not obtain any of them, he would miss the opportunity here. In the sky, the array had yet to disappear. As Zichin took away the core divine pattern, the array seemed to have been activated, and the killing intent began to spread. "Damn it, that's mine, it's mine!" Brett let out a roar and rushed forward crazily. Zichin had too many good things on him. Now that he had obtained the biggest opportunity here, he must snatch it. Zichin stood in the sky and glanced at Brett. Heaven and earth prohibition. Main killing. With that, the array trembled, and a portion of the divine pattern lit up. A destructive aura surged out. Boom! A ray of light fell from above and went straight for Brett. Brett felt that his life was in danger, and his expression changed drastically. Then he swallowed the pill without hesitation. The aura around him immediately became violent. This was originally meant to be used in a head-on battle with Zichin, but now he had no choice but to use it, because he did not expect Zichin to be able to activate such an array. Boom! As the strong light fell, everything within a radius of 1,000 feet was destroyed. A portion of the frozen soul beasts also disappeared. In the center of the light, there was a large crater where Brett had fallen. Blood-red light surged around his body. His aura was weak, but he was still in a berserk state. He wasn't dead. He stood up shakily, but his eyes were filled with fear. Turn around and run. Now that Zichin had mastered the power of the sky array, he no longer had the courage to fight. Zichin glanced at Brett and narrowed his eyes slightly. Whoa! In the sky, the formation trembled again, and the second attack fell. Boom! There was another rumbling sound, and a second crater appeared on the ground. Brett's body trembled, and the red light that was circulating around his body dissipated. Then he fell straight down. He was dead. Zi-Chen turned his head and looked at David. David shook his head. "This has nothing to do with me." After he finished speaking, a formation appeared under his feet, and his body disappeared. At this moment, Zi-Chen had the absolute advantage, so he naturally did not dare to fight against him. Zi-Chen lowered his head and looked at these soul beasts. If he wanted to kill these soul beasts now, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. However, this was too immoral. After all, it was not his own power. He planned to undo the formation and let these soul beasts go. Thus, he began to form seals and prepared to remove the heaven and earth forbidden technique. Suddenly, Zi-Chen stopped what he was doing. Everything here was not the property of the magic soul lineage, but the Tao of divine inscriptions. The purpose of them staying here was to nurture even more lost soul reserve troops. From the looks of it, the magic souls were not on the same side as him. To put it bluntly, all the opportunities here came from the Tao of divine inscriptions, and he was currently the only successor of the Tao of divine inscriptions. Therefore, he had the right to deal with these things. With this thought in mind, Zi-Chen made a prompt decision and used the heaven and earth forbidden technique again. Rumble. The formation that was more than 100,000 feet long began to rotate in the sky, and a terrifying killing intent surged from afar. No one dared to approach. The trial takers were standing far away as they watched this scene in shock. Vader and the other two were also dumbfounded. They watched as the majestic light of power poured down from the sky and attacked the soul beasts indiscriminately. If it wasn't for the strange light protecting the three of them, they might have already been blasted into nothingness. This commotion lasted for a full 15 minutes. In the sky, the formation twisted a few times and then disappeared. Zi-Chen's face turned pale as he descended from the sky. Vader and the other two were still standing there, as if they had been petrified. All the soul beasts within 100,000 feet were killed. Not a single one was left alive. Shiny soul crystals flickered in the surroundings. This. Lan Shan was so shocked that he could not say a word. Angeli's mouth was wide open and her eyes were round. "This is the Lord." Vader sighed and was also full of admiration. We're rich. Lan Shan reacted and was very excited. Vader also reacted and said, "No, these are all the Lord's." Lan Shan looked at Vader in confusion. Along the way, the soul crystals that the Lord had killed had all been given to them. Vader said, "Have you forgotten what's behind the Lord?" The three of them had been to the 10,000 Spirits Pure Land and knew that many of Zi-Chen's friends and family lived there. The soul crystals that the Lord had obtained had all been given to them, but that was only a small portion. Now, there were close to 10,000 of them. This was a huge number and also a huge amount of wealth. Lan Shan and Angeli were both intelligent people, so they immediately understood what was going on. Vader had told the two that the Lord had talked about selling jade talismans when he was chatting with the Lord. At that time, the two of them were stunned. Ever since they saw the Lord Zi-Chen in action, the two of them thought that the Lord Zi-Chen was a godlike figure, and such an existence was actually selling jade talismans, and in bulk at that. This was more or less like a peddler, and was clearly inconsistent with the Lord's identity. Vader explained at that time that besides himself, the Lord had friends and family behind him, and was under a lot of pressure. As the first person to follow Zi-Chen, he had witnessed the Lord's difficulties along the way. Therefore, the three of them could not take these soul crystals at all, but they could pick them up. The three of them split up and picked up these soul crystals as quickly as possible. They had never thought that they would pick up soul crystals one day, and that their hands would cramp up. Zi-Chen's face grew paler and paler, as if he had consumed a lot of energy after controlling the formation. He staggered several times in the short distance of several hundred feet. Finally, Zichen walked to a large rock and sat down. He closed his eyes and began to regulate his breathing. Suddenly, a voice came from not far away. "Stop! Who told you to pick up my spoils? Do you want to die?" Chapter 53:12. A man walked out from the forest as he stared coldly at Vader and the other two. His aura was like a tidal wave, producing an extremely strong oppressive force. It was a ninth-stage realm cultivator. Vader and the other two's expressions changed as they immediately stopped what they were doing. Vader asked, "Is there some misunderstanding?" That man gave a cold harumph. "You've snatched my spoils of war, and this is called a misunderstanding." Lan Shan howled furiously. "This belongs to my lord, not you! Lad, you dare to doubt me. Do you want to die? Kneel down." The man's eyes narrowed as an endless, murderous intent surged. A terrifying, oppressive force headed straight for Lan Shan. "What I said is the truth. My lord had killed 10,000 spirit beasts in an instant earlier. Can you do it?" Lan Shan clenched his teeth as he resisted this pressure, trying his best not to bend his body. It was even more impossible for him to kneel down. Looking at Lan Shan's stubborn gaze, ninth stage realm's anger started to rise up from nowhere. If it was normal times a mere second stage realm cultivator dared to talk back to him, he would have slapped him to death. But now, while the other party was pressuring Lan Shan, most of his attention was on Zichen. After all, this lord was the scariest. The commotion from before almost made him tremble in fear. If it wasn't for the fact that the array had disappeared, he wouldn't dare to stand out or even go near. "Reckless dog, go and die!" Ninth stage realm prepared to make an example out of him and at the same time probe Zichen's background. Just at this moment, Zichen opened his eyes. "Aren't you afraid that I'll summon out the previous array again?" Ninth stage realm gave a cold laugh when he heard that. He no longer looked at Lan Shan but turned his head to look at Zichen. "If you didn't say this, I might still respect you. Now that you've said this, I'm 100% certain that you don't have the ability to summon out that array." When Vader and the other two heard that, their faces immediately turned pale. Their lord's current condition was indeed not very good. Even the three of them could tell. If he really lost his greatest reliance, it would be extremely troublesome. Zichen stood up and smiled. "You're so sure? I don't have any ability to retaliate." "Haha," ninth stage realm laughed out loud. "Earlier I wasn't too sure and was just bluffing you. Now that I see your fake, confident expression, I'm even more certain. You're already at the end of your rope." The ninth stage realm, who spoke, no longer bothered about Vader and the other two. He didn't even look at the spoils of war on the ground as he walked towards Zichen. These soul crystals were good stuff, but the real priceless treasures were in Zichen's possession. At the same time, more figures appeared nearby. They were all trial takers. Previously, they had been scared away. This time, they felt that the opportunity had come, so they turned back. However, David was not among them. He seemed to have really left. "Come back." Zichen glanced at Vader and the other two. Lan Shan panicked. "Sir, look at them. They're stealing our things." Those who were close to them had already begun to pick up the soul crystals on the ground. They were obviously trying to snatch their spoils of war. Hearing Lan Shan's words, someone glanced at him with a mocking smile. "This is a trial ground. Everything belongs to the trial takers. The spoils of war naturally belong to everyone." Someone gave a disdainful smile. "So we're just taking back what belongs to us." "That's right. Who made the rule that these belong to you?" Everyone's expressions were full of ridicule as they picked up the soul crystals, totally ignoring Lan Shan. At this moment, they were in a good mood. These soul crystals were enough to raise their soul power by a large margin. Perhaps next time they would have a chance to successfully become reserve soldiers. "How can you be so rude?" If this isn't daylight robbery, then what is? Lan Shan gave an aggrieved look. These belonged to Sir Ziqin. He wanted these resources for his friends. Ziqin gave a faint smile. No need to be nervous. It's just some soul crystals. You just need to remember their looks. If they're still alive later, everyone will have to pay 10 times the compensation. If they're dead, then forget it. Just based on you. Everyone's expressions were full of disdain, but all of them subconsciously stopped what they were doing. Previously, they had witnessed Ziqin's methods. If they couldn't kill Ziqin now, in the future if they met again, there was a possibility that they would have to pay 10 times the compensation. So now, they could only wait for Ziqin to die before they could take away these things without any burden. You're really confident. The first 9th stage realm cultivator who appeared started to get closer to Ziqin. At the same time, in the other directions, there were also some 9th stage realm cultivators who were getting closer to Ziqin. They knew very well that only this realm could threaten Ziqin, whereas Ziqin's face still looked pale, as though he had not recovered. This was where their confidence lay. Ziqin looked at these 9th stage realm cultivators and then looked at the others. He couldn't help but shook his head. You guys are really silly. But, according to my principles, I still have to give you a kind advice. Ziqin looked at those people and said solemnly, if you retreat now, you can live. For some reason, Vader, Blue Mountain, and Angeli immediately felt a sense of relief when they heard this. The pale-faced lord was still that lord from back then. His words had appeared many times and had come true many times. Just based on you? That 9th stage realm cultivator's face was full of disdain, while the others were also ridiculing him. If it was the previous Ziqin, they wouldn't even dare to get close to this place. But the current Ziqin apparently didn't have the qualifications to threaten them, because he couldn't even protect himself. The leader of the 9th stage realm cultivators gave a cold laugh. I'll also give you a sentence. Give me all the treasures on you, and then kneel down and kowtow to me a few times. Perhaps I might spare your life. Otherwise, the few of you will have to die. That's right, make him kowtow. How dare you threaten us? Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror to see what kind of conduct you have? Kowtow, kowtow now. The others also roared with laughter, bearing an indifferent expression. This scene had been repeated many times, but unfortunately, no one believed it every single time. Vader was already feeling very helpless as he looked at these people and felt very sorrowful. If it was usual times, I might give you a second chance. Ziqin's expression turned chilly, but I'm sorry, my mood isn't very good today, so you'll have to put up with it. Saying that, Ziqin took out the world extermination bell. Golden light shone brightly as it lit up the surroundings. This is that imitation. Everyone's eyes lit up when they saw that. Everyone's eyes were filled with greed. After all, the world extermination bell's reputation was simply too great among the Dharma soul lineage. Even if it was an imitation, it was something that many people yearned for. Those who were still restraining themselves earlier couldn't remain calm when they saw the imitation world extermination bell. Ziqin took in everyone's expressions, and a chilly glint flashed past his eyes. Dang! The bell rang. The patterns on the world extermination bell all lit up and a golden ripple spread outwards. The 9th stage realm leader shouted out loudly when he saw the golden ripples. Whoa! An array instantly appeared in front of him, forming a protection. The protection was like a real crystal, reflecting the light. Separated by the protection, the 9th stage realm looked at the approaching golden ripple. As though he felt that it wasn't safe, he clenched his teeth and coughed out a mouthful of blood. The blood landed on the crystal and started burning like a flame. The flame turned into a firebird and gave out a high-pitched cry. The overall defense had increased by quite a bit. After doing all these, he seemed to be filled with confidence. I don't believe that no matter how powerful this world extermination bell is in the hands of a weak 6th stage realm, it can still break my defense. His words had just ended when the golden ripple approached, as though it was crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. The firebird only persisted for an instant, and in the midst of the rippling golden ripple, it distorted and disappeared. Cracks appeared on the remaining crystal wall, and at the next moment, it shattered. The golden ripple passed through the ninth stage realm's body. The ninth stage realm's confident expression instantly froze. His eyes widened as he looked at Zi Chen in disbelief. A trickle of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. His soul had already been extinguished. When the others saw this, they all retreated out of conditioned reflex. All of their eyes were filled with terror, instantly killing a ninth stage realm cultivator. What kind of ability was that? Zi Chen stood indifferently as the golden bell suspended above his head, giving off ripples. At this moment, Zi Chen gave off a mysterious and powerful feeling. What are you all still in a daze for? Hurry up and leave. Don't tell me you really want the Lord to kill all of you? Vader looked at the dazed crowd and couldn't help but opened his mouth. These people then regained their senses and immediately retreated backwards. Some of them had already left long ago, but very quickly some of them stopped. These were all people with high realms and were at least 7th stage realm and above. Everyone think carefully. If he really has powerful ability, would he let us leave just like that? One of them suddenly opened his mouth. He's just a 6th stage realm cultivator. Even if he uses a replica to kill a 9th stage realm cultivator, he would definitely have to pay a huge price. Adding on to the fact that he had expended his energy earlier, if we were to escape now, would we wait for him to settle the scores later? When this sentence was said, the others also stopped. Putting themselves in his shoes, if they had powerful ability, would they let off a bunch of people with ulterior motives? Thus, at that moment, they naturally believed that Zi Chen was merely putting on an act. Perhaps, in that instant, he had already exhausted all of his strength. That's right, rather than being settled by others, why not make a move now? I don't believe that after killing so many spirit beasts, and one of them is a 9th stage realm cultivator. He's just a 6th stage realm cultivator. How much power would he have left? That's right, this is a rare opportunity, so we must not be scared stiff. The crowd started to open their mouths. The fear from before also disappeared one after another at this moment. The crowd was furious. When Zi Chen saw this, he gave a self-deprecating laugh. In this world, there were always so many people who thought themselves infallible. Forget it, no matter if you're really stupid or have ulterior motives. Since you're looking for death, then I'll grant you your wish. Zi Chen's aura instantly exploded. 1. At the same time, there was an additional array in the sky which covered an area of 5,000 feet. Golden Buddha, Fire Lotus. Under this array, all escaped jade talismans would lose their effect. Chapter 53:13. Zi Chen was infuriated, so he didn't hold back anymore. The Golden Buddha, Fire Lotus appeared. The combination of sacred and violent auras formed a strange power that prevented others from using jade talismans to escape. Above Zi Chen's head, ripples surged from the World Annihilation Bell. A portion of the divine patterns on it lit up again. Buzz! A destructive energy spread out with the golden bell as the center. It was like the god of death was harvesting lives. Trial takers fell one by one. Falling meant death. Because this wasn't a real imitation, but the real thing. Every divine pattern in the real World Annihilation Bell came from the wisdom of predecessors. Run. This demon is going to kill again. He killed so many soul beasts before, and now he wants to kill us. This guy is a demon. Let us go, you're too cruel. Use the jade talisman. Not good. The jade talisman can't be used. For a moment, there were continuous shouts. Zi Chen stood indifferently, completely ignoring the shouts around him. Vader and the other two were protected by golden light. All the destructive auras disappeared automatically when they approached the three of them. The three of them looked at the others and took out jade talismans. They were activated, disappeared, and then reappeared nearby. The light kept flashing, but they seemed to be jumping on a grid, and it was difficult for them to jump out of this 50,000 feet radius. As they jumped, some people died. The golden bell shook again. Clang! Golden ripples spread out layer by layer. Another group of people died. You will die a horrible death. We'll return it to you. Let us go. Please let us go. Demon, you kill people like flies. You have no mercy. You will definitely be consigned to eternal damnation in the future. People fell one after another. Before they died, everyone began to curse. There were many trial takers here, and the people Zichin killed were only those within a 50,000 feet radius. Such a big commotion naturally attracted the attention of others. Many people came from 50,000 feet away. Seeing the scene in front of them, they were all moved. They naturally wouldn't forget how Zichin had humiliated Leonard back then. They didn't expect him to be so powerful. Is this the power of the World Annihilation Bell? If a mere replica is already so powerful, wouldn't the real thing be even more powerful? Yeah, it's too scary. Such a treasure shouldn't exist in this world. Indeed, the number of people killed by this item is simply too great. Everyone in the outer ring was discussing animatedly. At this moment, Zichin, who was in the front array, suddenly stopped. There were about 30 or so people who were howling in despair. Zichin glanced at the crowd indifferently. Leave the soul crystals and leave. Could he survive? These people didn't dare to believe it and still stood there stupidly. You don't want to leave? Zichin frowned. Go, go. Everyone came to their senses and hurriedly put down the soul crystals. Then they turned around and ran. All of them rejoiced. Zichin withdrew the golden Buddha fiery lotus. More than 100 people died, and less than a third survived. Vader and the other two, who had taken in all of this, couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. These people could have lived, but they didn't know the difference between life and death. In the end, they were all dead. Without needing Zichin's instructions, the three of them continued to collect the spoils of war. You bunch of idiots, you're actually frightened by a mere 6-stage realm cultivator. Just at this moment, a ridiculing voice was heard. If you weren't howling in grief and running away, but were fighting with him to the death, he would have died long ago. This voice was extremely faint, and there was no way to determine the exact direction it came from. Those 30 over people were still terrified. When they heard this voice, their expressions didn't change much. Only when they were in the same situation did they know how terrifying Zichin was and how powerful the World Extermination Bell was. A 6-stage realm cultivator who is about to exhaust all his energy, and a replica of the World Extermination Bell can kill all of you. The replica of the World Extermination Bell is indeed powerful, but it depends on whose hands it is in. If it is in the hands of a 9th-stage realm cultivator, I believe it will have unlimited power. But a mere 6-stage realm cultivator, how much power can he display? There was still no way to determine the direction of the voice. Those 30 over people who were glad that they didn't die, when they heard these 2 sentences, their expressions started to change. They seemed to be wavering. Is there a need to think about this? If he really has the ability, why would he let you off? After all, he has already killed so many people. Why would he care about you? That voice was filled with a tinge of ridicule. Shut up. Vader was infuriated. If you want to die, no one is stopping you, so why are you persuading others to die? They are alive because of the Lord's benevolence, and not because the Lord doesn't have the ability. Lan Shan and Angeli were also filled with righteous indignation. How could there be such a bad person in this world? This was obviously instigating everyone to send themselves to their deaths. You're flying into a rage out of humiliation? Looks like I'm right. He is indeed an arrow at the end of its flight. If you had a little bit of courage earlier, you wouldn't have suffered such heavy casualties. That voice was filled with disdain. If you have the ability, then stand out. What ability does it have to secretly instigate others? Vader howled furiously. Zi-Chun waved his hand and said, "There's no need to be angry. Life is unpredictable and life and death is up to fate." Following that, Zi-Chun gestured a hand gesture to continue. When Vader and the other two saw that, they didn't say anything more as they continued to collect those soul crystals. No matter what, these soul crystals must not be snatched away by them. Have you heard of the story of the empty city stratagem? Don't you think it's similar to the current situation? Just pretending to be calm. That voice continued to speak. Zi-Chun closed his eyes and started to recover. See that? If you continue to hesitate, he will return to his peak state once again. By then, do you think he will let you off? This voice was extremely bewitching, and what it said seemed to make sense to the crowd. Among those 30 over people, many of them started to hesitate. Some of them had a regretful look on their faces. Perhaps they really should have risked it all earlier. Zi-Chun remained indifferent. This kind of silence to the crowd seemed like he was afraid. Humph, this is the refinement grounds. It's fine if you kill the spirit beasts, but why do you have to kill people? Just at this moment, a cold harumph was heard, and a 9th stage realm cultivator walked out. We're all from the spirit clan, so why do we have to commit massacres? The other party's face was filled with grief as he reprimanded. Could it be that you're a spy sent by the demon clan? Zi-Chun glanced at the other party and said disdainfully, "If you want the world extermination bell, just say so. Don't you find it disgusting to find such an excuse? Presumptuous! I can't stand you killing people. What has whatever you have on you got to do with me, Frank?" The other party glanced coldly at Zi-Chun. "Do you think that everyone is like you and scrupulous in order to achieve their goals? You're really disgusting, but there are indeed many people who are as disgusting as you in this world." Zi-Chun ridiculed, just like the saying, "You're a bitch and still want to establish a chastity memorial arch. You're courting death. Today, I, Frank, will get rid of this evil for the spirit clan." The other party was enraged, and the surrounding aura started to surge, bringing along a 9th stage realm's oppression. Zi-Chun said disdainfully, "If you dare to come over now, I will respect you as a man. Next year on this day, I will burn more joss paper for you." Zi-Chun gestured towards the other party with a provocative look on his face. There were many people here, but Frank was the only one who stood out. After witnessing Zi-Chun's previous methods, how would he dare to step forward? What if Zi-Chun still had some power left? But now, with so many people staring at him, retreating was obviously not the way out. "Everyone, this person is addicted to killing and has signs of being bedeviled. Why don't we join forces to take him down and hand him over to Lord Fahin to deal with?" Frank's eyes flashed slightly as he came up with this plan. Using righteousness to recruit a group of people to take action together. One-on-one, he didn't dare to. That makes sense. If he hasn't been bedeviled, why would he be addicted to killing and not even let off his own people? One person stood out. Those who dared to stand out at this time were obviously all in the 9th stage realm. Only they had the ability and confidence to block Zi-Chun's powerful attack. His own people? Zi-Chun smiled but didn't respond. He still had his eyes closed, but his soul power had already spread out in all directions. Even though that illusory voice had changed, he still knew who it was. Inciting others to send themselves to their deaths. He was the biggest enemy. But now, even with Zi-Chun's soul power, he was unable to find out where the other party's real body was. "Everyone, this devil has expended a lot of energy, and it's the best time for us to strike. Once he fully recovers, according to his character, what awaits us is a complete annihilation." Frank saw the situation and said again, "That's right, this is a rare opportunity." Among the 30 over people, an 8th stage realm opened his mouth. After hesitating for a moment, he changed his mind. With someone taking the lead, the others who were hesitating also made up their minds. They stood out once again. None of them backed down. It was obvious that they were used to living a life of bloodshed. At this moment, they had to take another gamble. With the addition of these 30 over people, the team obviously grew stronger. Such a devil, everyone should kill him. Another 9th stage realm cultivator stood out. That's right, if he's allowed to live, who knows how many innocent people will be killed in future. Kill him, we must kill him. More and more people stood out successively. That voice in the dark obviously knew how to judge the situation, and at this moment, it didn't say a single word, as though it had disappeared. Zeechan opened his eyes and stopped regulating his breathing. He smiled faintly and said, "Your plan is really good," successfully using words to arouse their greedy nature and make them make a move against me. If it's a fluke and succeeds, then both sides will suffer losses and you can kill the rest, taking advantage of the situation. No one responded. Everyone else's expressions changed. They naturally understood the meaning behind Zi Chen's words. Zi Chen smiled again. If you don't say anything, everyone will think that you've silently agreed. But I won't think that way because these people can't possibly win, and this battle will definitely not involve a situation where both sides suffer losses. If you dare to appear, you will definitely die. Zi Chen stood up. Now let's see if you dare to appear or not. Chapter 53:14. In everyone's eyes, Zi Chen was already an arrow at the end of its flight. But now he actually declared war on them. This was undoubtedly a provocation. Many people looked at Zi Chen with killing intent in their eyes. They naturally did not believe that Zi Chen could kill so many of them in this state. Frank smiled disdainfully. Now I'm more and more certain that you're bluffing. He turned his head and looked around. Everyone, if you miss this opportunity, I'm sure everyone knows what will happen in the future. The others began to step forward, their eyes flashing with killing intent. The 30 or so people who had escaped earlier were the same. Vader felt sorry for these people. They were being used as tools and would obviously die. Not only did they cause their own deaths, but they also implicated Sir. Come on, if I let even one of you escape, I won't be called Zi Chen in the future. Everyone moved. Zi Chen also moved. The golden Buddha fire lotus appeared. It still covered a radius of 50,000 feet. Such a scene caused many people's expressions to change because it meant that Zi Chen did not seem to have consumed any energy and his combat power was the same as before. Then the world annihilation bell vibrated. But this time, in addition to the vibrating world annihilation bell, the massacre spirit also appeared. Like a bolt of lightning, after the world annihilation bell vibrated, it reaped the lives of those who were still alive. The previous scene happened once again. In this scene that was close to a massacre, everyone tried to escape, but it was useless. So they wailed and begged for mercy. Unfortunately, there was no chance of survival. I've been used as a tool, let me go. That's right, it's all that person's fault. Please let me go, I know I'm wrong. All kinds of begging for mercy sounded, as well as shrill screams. Zi Chen was expressionless, no longer showing any mercy. Devil, you're a devil. Seeing this, someone cursed again. It was still useless. Die. The golden ripple swept past, and the massacre spirit followed closely behind. Poof! Franks fell. His eyes widened, and before his consciousness dissipated, there was a hint of regret in his eyes. If he had known this would happen, he would not have been so impulsive. Miserable screams continued. Zi Chen forcibly consumed the lives of everyone, and his face became paler because of the increase in consumption. Vader let out a sigh. At this moment, he could no longer persuade His Excellency to stop, because human nature was greedy. These people who were still alive would soon forget about being lucky to be alive. The 30 or so people from before were the best examples. The person in the dark appeared. It was David. He looked ahead with a smile on his face. You bunch of idiots. Do you really think you can do it just because I asked you to? He laughed disdainfully. If Zichin was that easy to kill, would it even be your turn? He was very pleased with himself, because the plan had succeeded. Those who had not died yet were all furious. They wanted nothing more than to go up and tear David apart. "My lord, let me go. I want to kill that guy. That's right. I must tear him into 1,000 pieces. Damn it! How dare you scheme against us?" The crowd shouted again. David said disdainfully, "It's too late. You're no longer trustworthy, so you all have to die. Otherwise, why would I appear?" As he spoke, he looked at Zichin. "Don't you agree?" Zichin was still killing people and did not respond. His aura was gradually weakening. David laughed. "Zichin, we're actually the same kind of people. The difference is that you don't have the support of the people." Vader said angrily, "That's not the support of the people. You're using everyone." "Wrong. If they had no desires in their hearts, how could they be used by me? Just like the three of you. Why didn't you kill Zichin?" David laughed. "Speaking of which, it's because they were greedy. They didn't use their brains to think. Even if you killed Zichin, would you be able to get the item? Why did I come here? A bunch of pig brains." When the crowd heard this, they were even more furious. Each of them was filled with regret. Zichin had said the same thing before, but they did not believe him. Now that David said it himself, the crowd was filled with regret. Unfortunately, it was too late to regret. Zichin was no longer holding back. "Idiots, you're all a bunch of idiots. If you were allowed to become Dharma souls, how badly would you tarnish the reputation of Dharma souls in the future?" David laughed disdainfully, then looked at Zichin. "That's why, Zichin, you and I are on the same path. We're both very smart, and only we can become Dharma souls." He pointed at the others. "As for these people, if they die, so be it. You're shameless. You'll die a horrible death. I'm going to kill you." There were still people shouting angrily. David glanced at those people. "You're stupid, and you don't allow others to say it?" Then he looked at Zichin again. "Actually, smart people like us should be friends. What a pity, what a pity." Zichin still did not respond. One by one, the challengers fell and died. This time, Zichin did not let anyone go. They wailed, screamed, begged for mercy, cursed, until the last person died. "Pa, pa, pa." David clapped. Then he walked forward. "Just as I expected. You won't let any idiots go." He smiled and said, "You and I are both smart people, but unfortunately, we're standing on opposite sides today. Then we can only fight to the death." Zichin looked at David and said calmly, "Have you forgotten what I said before?" "Ha." David laughed. "This sentence is only for those idiots to hear. It's useless to me." He walked forward without any pause. "Don't tell me. You still have other tricks up your sleeve. You should know very well how much you have left." He stretched out his little finger. "Even if you still have this little trick up your sleeve, it's useless to me." A scarlet pill appeared in David's hand. "Do you see this? It's an extremely rare pill. It can instantly double my combat strength." With that, David swallowed it in one gulp. Blood-red light immediately surged around his body. It was very similar to Brett's technique. Then a long saber appeared in David's hand. There are over 100 formations sealed in here. Although it's not as powerful as the imitation World Annihilation Bell, it can still unleash great power in my hands. With the long saber in hand, the light of the formations flowed on it. A terrifying aura surged out. Vader and the other two immediately felt suffocated. Zichin was expressionless. David took out another item. This is an ancient talisman. It contains the power of the pre-chaos era. He smiled proudly. "Tell me, will you die like this?" Vader and the other two were almost in despair. David, who was at his peak, was up against Lord Zichin, who had expended a lot of energy. The outcome seemed obvious. At this moment, Zi-chan walked forward. He took out an item. It looked like a sword, but it also looked like a formation. The next moment, Zi-chan waved his hand. A ray of light shot forward. It looked like sword light, but also like a divine pattern. Even though they were very close, Vader and the other two could not see it clearly. Where the ray of light passed, the ancient talisman shattered, the long saber broke, the red light disappeared, and David's body was split into two. Instant kill. This scene was deeply imprinted in Vader's mind. At this moment, there was only shock in his heart. After so many years after he became a Dharma soul and learned more about the secrets of Dharma souls, he finally understood what Lord Zi-chen's move meant. Chapter 53:15. The dazzling light disappeared, and the world became incomparably quiet. Zi-chen's body swayed, and he sat on the ground. In this battle, he had exhausted himself to the extreme, so he had no choice but to use the path sword. The path sword did not disappoint him. One sword kill. After the shock, Vader and the other two immediately went forward. At this moment, their admiration for Zi-chen could no longer be described with words. Collect the spoils. After saying this, Zi-chen began to recover. The crisis was not over yet. In such a state, there might be many people who wanted to take advantage of the situation. Vader and the other two also knew the severity of the matter, so they quickly collected the spoils. After that, they woke up Zi-chen and quickly left this place. In the next few days, Zi-chen had been recovering. The other three took the role of guards. 3 days later, Zi-chen's exhaustion had basically recovered. After obtaining the greatest opportunity here, it was time to leave. After distributing the spoils, Zi-chen, who had taken 99% of the spoils, looked up at the sky with a thought. Buzz! The space in front of him rippled, and a door opened. Then, the same scene appeared in other places. Everyone was stunned. Was the trial over? It was much faster than before. Most of them hadn't collected enough soul crystals yet. No one knew that all of this came from Zi-chen's thought. Walking out of the passage, Zi-chen appeared in the square. Then more people appeared. They were discussing spiritedly, and their faces were full of doubts and puzzlement. A person in charge asked, "Why did the trial end?" Everyone shook their heads, not understanding why this happened. That person turned his head and looked at Zi-chen with a look of doubt. Leonard also appeared. His gaze searched the crowd, but he did not see the person he wanted to see. He asked a few people, but everyone shook their heads. Those who wanted to rob Zi-chen had all been killed. At that time, except for the 4 of them, there seemed to be no one alive. "Where's Brett?" Leonard walked forward and questioned Zi-chen. Zi-chen looked at Leonard. "You're asking me? Don't play dumb here. Let me ask you, where's Brett? Where's David?" There was a hint of anger in Leonard's eyes. Zi-chen said, "Are they your friends? When did you introduce him to me? Before we went in, I didn't hear you say that you wanted me to take care of these 2. Why are you still pretending? You were the one who killed them." Leo pointed at Zi-chen. "You even killed your own comrade. You don't deserve to be a lost soul." When Zi-chen heard this, he was furious. "Are you an idiot? I don't even know them, so why should I kill them?" "You," Leo gritted his teeth, but he obviously didn't dare to tell the truth. "If you didn't kill them, why are there traces of battle? Can't I kill a bunch of soul beasts?" "I'm telling the truth. Moreover, I don't believe that trash like you can control the entire Dharma Soul sect. You want to die?" This was no longer a threat. It was a provocation. A mere 6th-degree realm actually dared to challenge Dharma Soul's dignity. How could Mars not be angry? He's not wrong. In Dharma Soul, trash like you haven't reached the stage where you can control the entire sect. Almai appeared again. During this period of time, I've seen a lot of good shows. Looks like when I go back, I'll have to spread the word. After so many years, everyone is used to Dharma Soul's way of doing things. But I feel that perhaps we should change it from the inside, because some people really ignore the rules and do whatever they want. You haven't left. Mars looked at Almai. Almai yawned. If I leave, wouldn't I miss the good show? Looks like my sleep was worth it. When I wake up, there's a good show to watch. Humph. Mars snorted coldly and kept Zichen's token. You wait here for the notice. Those who didn't pass, scram. He was really angry. Unfortunately, he couldn't do anything to Zichen. In this assessment, only Zichen alone passed. The others had all lost their qualifications. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.